At a small restaurant in Hanoi, two women from Chicago sat down for one final meal before flying home. They expected a good dinner, but no one expected what happened next. After tasting the food, one of the women suddenly stood up. She walked toward the back of the restaurant, found the owner, pressed her hands together, and bowed. The owner looked confused and immediately tried to stop her, but the traveler continued thanking her. She said the meal was one of the best things she had ever tasted. The moment, shared online in November 2025, was funny, spontaneous, and slightly awkward. But the food that created such a powerful reaction was not a luxurious tasting menu. There was no expensive dining room, no celebrity chef, no complicated presentation. It was simple Vietnamese food, prepared with the warmth of a home cooked meal. And this was not an isolated reaction. Across Vietnam, international visitors are becoming deeply attached to meals that many local families consider completely ordinary: boiled pork, braised fish, stir fried vegetables, a bowl of soup, and hot rice placed in the middle of the table. So, why can such a simple meal become one of the strongest memories of an entire trip? The answer begins with what a Vietnamese family meal actually represents. A Vietnamese home cooked meal is rarely built around one impressive dish. Instead, several smaller dishes are placed together. There may be boiled pork served with ginger fish sauce, morning glory stir fried with garlic, a light vegetable soup, fried fish, braised pork, or a clay pot of fish, carrying the rich aroma of a family kitchen. Rice sits at the center of everything. Each dish has a different role: something salty, something fresh, something rich, something light. The soup refreshes the palate. The vegetables balance the meat. Fish sauce, lime, herbs, and chili allow each person to adjust the meal to their own taste. Nothing needs to be overly complicated, but when everything is eaten together, the meal feels complete. For Vietnamese people, these dishes may bring back memories of childhood, of coming home after school, of family dinners after a long day at work, or of food prepared by a mother or grandmother who never needed a written recipe. For an international visitor, the same meal offers something different. It provides a glimpse into daily Vietnamese life that cannot always be found in a restaurant created for tourists. This is why many travelers arrive searching for pho. One foreign guest shared a video of himself eating with a Vietnamese family. The meal was placed on a mat in the middle of the room. There was soup, boiled meat, vegetables, and several shared dishes. Because sitting cross legged was difficult for him, the family gave him a tiny plastic stool. He sat on it, laughed, and pointed excitedly at the food. He asked how each dish had been prepared. Then he described the entire meal in 3 words: simple but perfect. That sentence explains much of the appeal of Vietnamese home cooking. The food does not need to look luxurious. Its value comes from freshness, balance, and familiarity. A Korean guest once ate fried fish, braised meat, sour soup, and vegetables with a Vietnamese family. The dishes were ordinary by local standards, but she ate enthusiastically and repeatedly praised the meal. In another home, 2 Chinese guests were served tofu and sauce, chicken cooked with lemongrass and chili, eggplant, pickled vegetables, and morning glory. Again, the ingredients were inexpensive. The presentation was simple, but their reaction showed that ordinary food can still feel completely new to someone experiencing it for the first time. This is the first reason these meals work so well. Vietnamese home cooking usually does not depend on excessive oil, sugar, or one overpowering flavor. In many Vietnamese homes, especially in rural areas, the meal may be placed on a mat. Everyone sits in a circle. The dishes belong to the group. People reach toward the same plates, serve one another, and talk about what happened during the day. For someone accustomed to a dining table and an individual plate, the experience can feel unfamiliar, sometimes even physically difficult. One foreign guest repeatedly tried to find a comfortable position. First, he sat cross legged. Then, he stretched out his legs. Then, he changed position again. Eventually, he almost lay down while continuing to eat. The moment was funny, but he still refused to leave the meal. The food was too good, and the atmosphere was too welcoming. And this is where many visitors realize the meal is about far more than food. The meal is not only about what is served, it is about being included. Someone fills the guest's bowl. Someone explains how to use the sauce. Someone notices which dish they enjoy and offers them another piece. The food is shared, but so is the attention. A restaurant in another country might reproduce the recipe perfectly. It could import the ingredients and follow every cooking step. But recreating the feeling of sitting inside a Vietnamese home surrounded by people who have invited you into their family circle is much more difficult. And for many visitors, that feeling arrives before they have even taken the first bite. While visiting Hoi An, a young foreign traveler was unexpectedly invited to eat by the owner of a local shop. They had not known each other for long, but after sitting down with the family, the traveler said the place felt like home. Later, she shared a photograph of the empty meal. The food had clearly been enjoyed, but what she remembered most was eating with people who had been strangers only a short time earlier. A Korean vlogger named Nam noticed the same habit. He told his audience that Vietnamese people often invite friends and guests home for a meal. When a Vietnamese friend invited him, the family prepared soup, meat, duck, braised fish, and several shared dishes. To the family, it was a familiar meal. To Nam, it felt remarkably generous. He understood that he was not only being fed, he was being welcomed. In Vietnam, an invitation to eat can communicate something much larger than hunger. It can mean, come sit with us, share what we have. For this moment, you do not have to remain a stranger. And this is where many visitors understand why the memory becomes so powerful. They may initially believe they are reacting only to the taste, but what they often carry home is the memory of being cared for. The meal becomes special because someone chose to share it with them. One foreign man regularly received Vietnamese food from a neighbor. Over time, he became deeply attached to the flavors. But when the neighbor moved away, those meals suddenly disappeared from his life. He missed them so much that he created a channel dedicated to eating Vietnamese food. He even chose a Vietnamese name for himself, Chu Jiao. What began as a neighbor sharing food became a lasting connection to Vietnam. Another traveler remembered a modest rice meal that cost around 50,000 dong. Hot rice, a few savory dishes, some vegetables, and a small bowl of soup. To many Vietnamese people, it was an ordinary, affordable meal. But after returning home, The traveler continued thinking about it. The memory was not created by the price. It came from the comfort of the food, the warmth of the rice, the balance of the dishes, and the feeling of being looked after. A Korean man who had celebrated Tet in Vietnam later returned home and tried to prepare a Vietnamese style holiday meal for his own friends and family. He did not know every recipe perfectly, but he wanted to recreate the atmosphere and the flavors he associated with Vietnam. There are also stories of young Vietnamese people sharing meals with elderly Japanese friends. The dishes were sometimes extremely simple, yet the older guests returned happily. Vietnamese home cooking does not need to be the most expensive food in the world. It does not need to be called the best. Its strength lies somewhere more personal. It is the aroma of fish braising in a kitchen, the sound of chopsticks against a bowl, a plate of vegetables placed beside hot rice, a tiny plastic stool given to a guest who cannot sit comfortably on the floor, a stranger saying, "Come and eat with us." These moments may feel completely normal to a Vietnamese family, but to someone far from home, they can feel extraordinary. And perhaps that is why international visitors sometimes react so emotionally. They are not only tasting Vietnamese food, for a brief moment, they are being treated like part of a Vietnamese family. So when you visit Vietnam, do not search only for famous restaurants. If someone invites you to share a home cooked meal, take the seat, taste the soup, try the fish sauce, ask about the dishes, and do not worry if sitting on the mat feels difficult at first, because the most unforgettable meal of your journey may not come with a menu. It may simply be waiting in the middle of a family home. This is Beyond Vietnam, where food is never just food, and an ordinary meal can become an unforgettable memory.